Yevgeny Prigozhin's story began far from the battlefields of Ukraine, in a city that was once the heart of the Russian Empire. He was born in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, in 1961, a time when the Soviet Union was a dominant force on the world stage. Life was tough in the Soviet Union, with the country still recovering from the ravages of World War II and the harsh realities of the Cold War setting in. Prigozhin's early years were marked by poverty and hardship, a common story for many Soviet families during that era. He was expelled from a sports boarding school, a setback that would have significant implications for his future. With limited options, he got involved in petty crime, a path that many young men in his situation found themselves on. Prigozhin's life took a dramatic turn in 1981, a year that would change the course of his destiny. He was convicted of robbery and assault, crimes that landed him in the harsh Soviet penal system. Sentenced to 12 years in prison, this experience hardened him and shaped his worldview in profound ways. It also made him resourceful and ruthless, qualities that would later define his career. After his release from prison in 1990, Prigozhin entered a new world, one that was vastly different from the one he had left behind. The Soviet Union was crumbling, and the streets were filled with uncertainty and chaos. Amidst this turmoil, Prigozhin saw an opportunity to make a fresh start, to reinvent himself in a rapidly changing world. He began by selling hot dogs on the streets of St. Petersburg, a humble beginning that would lay the foundation for his future empire. This small venture was more than just a way to make ends meet. It was a stepping stone to greater ambitions, a testament to his resilience and entrepreneurial spirit. Prigozhin's journey from a struggling young man in Leningrad to a successful entrepreneur in St. Petersburg is a story of transformation, driven by determination and a keen sense of opportunity. As the city around him evolved, so did Prigozhin, adapting to the new economic landscape and seizing every chance to build his empire. His early days in Leningrad were just the beginning of a remarkable journey, one that would see him rise from the streets to the heights of power and influence. Prigozhin's hot dog stand was a success. He expanded his business. He opened a grocery store. Then he opened a chain of restaurants in St. Petersburg. His restaurants were luxurious. They attracted the city's elite. One of Prigozhin's most important customers was Anatoly Sobchak. Sobchak was the mayor of St. Petersburg. He was a rising star in Russian politics. He was also a close ally of a young Vladimir Putin. Prigozhin's connection to Sobchak gave him access to powerful people. He used his charm and business acumen to build relationships. These connections would prove invaluable in his rise to power. As Putin rose through the ranks of the Russian government, Prigozhin remained a trusted associate. He became known as Putin's chef for catering lavish dinners for the Russian president and his guests. This role gave Prigozhin unparalleled access to the Kremlin. He used this access to secure lucrative government contracts for his catering company, Concord Catering. Prigozhin's ambitions went far beyond catering. He saw an opportunity to expand his influence. He created the Internet Research Agency, a troll factory that spread Russian information and prowess online. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea and backed ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. This marked a turning point for Prigozhin. He founded the Wagner Group, a private military company. Wagner operated in the shadows. It provided deniability for the Kremlin. Its mercenaries fought in Ukraine, Syria, and Africa. They gained a reputation for brutality and ruthlessness. Prigozhin initially denied any connection to Wagner. However, evidence of his involvement mounted. He eventually acknowledged his role. He embraced his image as a ruthless warlord. As Wagner's influence grew, so did Prigozhin's. His private military company, Wagner Group, became a significant force in various conflict zones around the world, from Syria to Africa. This expansion not only increased his wealth but also his strategic importance to the Russian state. He became a powerful figure in Russian politics. Leveraging his military successes, Prigozhin began to weave himself into the political fabric of Russia, attending high-profile events and forging alliances with key political figures. He used his media outlets to attack Putin's critics. Prigozhin controlled a network of media organizations that he used to shape public opinion, often launching aggressive campaigns against those who opposed the Kremlin. He presented himself as a patriotic defender of Russian interests. Through his speeches and public appearances, Prigozhin cultivated an image of a staunch nationalist, dedicated to protecting and advancing Russia's global standing. Prigozhin's relationship with the Kremlin was complex. While he was a valuable asset, his growing influence and independent power base made him a potential threat to the established order. He was useful to Putin. The Russian president found Prigozhin's capabilities in warfare prowess and his fearlessness invaluable, especially in the capture of Bakhmut. He could be relied upon to carry out military tasks. Whether it was the front line of battle operations or rendering security services of other nations, Prigozhin's Wagner Group was often the go-to force for tasks that required a degree of separation from the Russian state. However, his growing power and ambition made some in the Kremlin uneasy. As Prigozhin's influence expanded, so did the concerns among Russia's political elite about his ultimate ambitions and loyalty. Prigozhin's star continued to rise. His public appearances drew large crowds and his speeches resonated with a segment of the population. This made him eye for more power and authority. He became more and more outspoken. Prigozhin did not shy away from making bold statements, often criticizing government policies and military strategies, which further increased his popularity among certain groups. He criticized the handling of the war in Ukraine. Prigozhin was vocal about his dissatisfaction with the Russian military's approach, positioning himself as a more competent and decisive leader. He challenged the authority of the Russian military leadership. By openly questioning their decisions, Prigozhin not only highlighted their failures, but also positioned himself as a potential alternative, further complicating his relationship with the Kremlin. The invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, marked a significant turning point in Prigozhin's relationship with the Kremlin. The conflict not only strained international relations but also exposed Prigozhin's long quest for power. Prigozhin, once a staunch supporter of the Kremlin, became increasingly critical of the Russian military leadership. His public outbursts and scathing remarks were a stark contrast to his previous loyalty. He accused them of gross incompetence and widespread corruption, pointing fingers at high-ranking officials and demanding accountability. His accusations were not mere whispers but loud proclamations that echoed through the corridors of power. Prigozhin's relentless criticism did not go unnoticed. The Kremlin, known for its intolerance of dissent, began to see him as a growing threat to their authority and stability. The tension was palpable. The Kremlin's inner circle, including President Putin, viewed Prigozhin's actions as a direct challenge to their power. They feared his influence could undermine their control. In response, they moved swiftly to curtail his power. Confidential documents and secret meetings outlined strategies to neutralize his influence. One of their first moves was to shut down his media outlets, silencing his voice and cutting off his primary means of communication with the public. They also targeted his financial resources, cutting off funding to the Wagner Group, the private military company he controlled. This was a significant blow to his operations and influence. Despite these risks and the mounting pressure, Prigozhin continued to speak out. His defiance was unwavering and he seemed determined to challenge the Kremlin's narrative. He seemed to believe he was untouchable, buoyed by his past successes and the support he had garnered. Prigozhin had powerful allies within the Russian elite, individuals who shared his views or saw him as a useful tool in their own power struggles. He also had the support of many ordinary Russians who were disillusioned with the war and the current state of affairs. They saw in Prigozhin a figure who could potentially bring about change. On June 23, 2023, Prigozhin launched a mutiny against the Russian military leadership. He accused them of attacking Wagner forces in Ukraine. He called for their removal. Prigozhin's forces marched on Moscow. They seized control of the southern city of Rostov-on-Don. The world watched in astonishment as Russia appeared to be on the brink of civil war. The mutiny was short-lived after a decisive warning from President Putin. Putin also ordered the Chechen forces to be on standby to quash any threat from Prigozhin's army in case he refuses to stand down. However, after a day of high drama, Prigozhin agreed to stand down. He reached a deal with the Kremlin. As part of the deal, Prigozhin agreed to go into exile in Belarus. His Wagner fighters were given immunity from prosecution. The future of Wagner remained uncertain, but their influence in countries outside Russia still remains unchanged. Prigozhin's mutiny sent shockwaves through Russia. It also raised questions about Prigozhin's true motives. Was Prigozhin a power-hungry warlord who had overplayed his hand, or was he a patriot who had tried to save Russia from itself? The answer may never be known for sure. 2 months after the mutiny, on August 23, 2023, Prigozhin's private jet crashed in Russia. All 10 people on board were killed. The crash was shrouded in mystery. Was it an accident, or was it an assassination? Many suspected foul play. They pointed the finger at the Kremlin. However, the Kremlin denied any involvement in Prigozhin's death. Prigozhin had made many enemies. His death removed a thorn in Putin's side. Yevgeny Prigozhin's life was a remarkable one. He rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most powerful men in Russia. He was a complex and contradictory figure. He was a ruthless warlord, a cunning businessman, and a master manipulator. Prigozhin's legacy is known in the whole world. Some saw him as a patriot who fought for Russia's interests. Others saw him as a ruthless mercenary who profited from violence and instability. One thing is certain: Prigozhin's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition and the corrosive nature of power. Prigozhin's death left a void in Russian politics. What will become of the Wagner Group? Will it be disbanded, or will it continue to operate under new leadership? The Kremlin moved quickly to assert control over Wagner. They demanded that its fighters swear an oath of allegiance to Russia. They also sought to limit Wagner's sole influence abroad. However, one thing is clear: Prigozhin's legacy of violence and instability will continue to haunt Russia and the world for years to come. If you liked the video you just watched, kindly subscribe to the channel for more of these interesting videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Until next time, remain blessed.